All right, we're ready to begin our closing keynote. Do a very brief introduction. Randi Zuckerberg is the CEO and founder of Zuckerberg Media, a new digital and traditional media and production company. She is also editor-in-chief of Complicated, a modern lifestyle newsletter and blog. Previously, Randi served as the marketing director for Facebook for 6 years. She was ranked among one of the 50 digital power players by The Hollywood Reporter. Thank you very much, and let's welcome Randi Zuckerberg.
Thank you, Randi.
I want to give a special shout out to Lance from Reading Room. Where are you, Lance? Thank you. Bradley and I traveled here from San Francisco, and between us we have about 95 electronic devices and apparently did not bring a laptop. So thank you so much to Lance. Really, really appreciate it. So before I get into, I want to talk today about 10 really exciting trends that I'm seeing in content for all of us. But before I do that, I just want to give you a brief introduction, a little bit about myself, and I'm going to try. Is that weird, awkward for me to like hold this giant mic? I was like, height is not really my advantage behind a podium. So I graduated from Harvard in 2003. The only reason I mention that is because I have another sibling who did not graduate. Sometimes when you have one leg up, you have to talk about it a little. But after Harvard, I moved to New York City and got my dream job working at Ogilvy and Mather advertising agency. Only when I got there, everyone else in the entry-level class got staffed on these glamorous television and magazine campaigns, and I was staffed in this brand new team called Interactive and Digital Marketing, and I was really pissed off. Until about a year and a half later, when everyone was still getting coffee on television and magazine sets, and we were one of the fastest growing teams inside Ogilvy. It was around that time that I started getting, the occasional email, instant message, call from my brother saying, I've started this thing. I need someone who knows something about digital marketing. Translation, I need someone who will work for free. And you're my sister. And I decided to take the plunge and go visit him out in California, not thinking really anything of it. I loved my life in Manhattan, but I was blown away by what I saw out in California. It was my brother and his co-founders just coding in this house with this incredible energy and just this passion for truly changing the way that we're communicating. It was right then and there I decided to move to California, and I literally went home, packed up my stuff in New York, went and have lived in California ever since. Over the next 6 years after that, I had an incredible front row seat to some of the biggest events. I got to see how almost every industry has changed through technology and social media. I was there through 2 presidential elections, multiple Olympics, global disasters to see the response, transformative elections that took place all over the world. There were 3 things that, as you guys are thinking about your own blogs and sites, that I thought we did very well at Facebook. Most of them were accidents, but nonetheless, we can all learn from them. The first is we took a demand-led approach to marketing. We didn't just open up our gates to everyone on day one, and that actually worked really well for us because we waited for our audience to tell us where to open Facebook. We started at Harvard, and then when enough people at Yale asked for Facebook, we opened there, and so on and so forth. After the universities, we opened to the military, to high schools, to organizations, and then eventually everyone. So as you guys are thinking about launching new channels of content or new areas of expertise, maybe let your audience guide you into where you should go next. The second thing is we really adopted crowdsourcing really early on. We had an immense challenge with translating the site into multiple languages. We knew that we were going to have to translate Facebook into 70+ languages, but there's so much content on the site that this was going to be incredibly expensive, incredibly time-consuming, and take a lot of resources that we didn't have as a small startup. So instead, we turned to our user base and said, who is fluent in languages that wants to help us translate the site? And in less than 48 hours, we were able to translate the entire site into Spanish and French. Around the time of the election in Iran, we were able to translate the entire site into Farsi in under 36 hours. The third thing, and this was one of the more purposeful things we did that I was excited about, it was really important to us early on to keep a real startup entrepreneurial feel. And there's like a rave going on somewhere. All right, startup entrepreneurial feel. It was really important for us. We saw all of these big companies who were like suddenly becoming less cool as they grew and losing their employees to other cooler, newer startups. So we started implementing a lot of things so that even as Facebook grew to thousands of people, it still felt like a small startup hacker culture. One of the things we did was every month we would do something called a hackathon, where people literally stayed up all night, and the only rule was that you had to work on a passion project that was completely unrelated to your day job. So people did really fun things. One engineer was like, I love Facebook and I love beer. How can I combine these two great loves? And during the hackathon, actually built a keg where you can walk up to it, and as you tap the keg for your beer, it takes a photo of you and uploads it to your Facebook profile. Some of our design team went up to the roof and drew a life-size QR code that if you're flying over Facebook, you can actually scan it from your phone and it shows you open jobs that are available. And one of my little pet hackathon projects, I had many over the years that went nowhere, like my band Evanescence Essence. I was like, we do this, Evanescence has 2 songs and we do both of them, was our motto. That was not such a successful hackathon project, but I started thinking a lot over the years on what the media company or television network of the future might look like if it was built entirely on top of Facebook. So I started to think a lot about live television and the fact that some brands on Facebook have bigger audiences than some of the television networks. I commandeered a broom closet one night of the hackathon with a little camera that I brought from home, and I just one by one started bringing engineers into the room and interviewing them about the different projects they worked on at Facebook. And we were live to anyone on the site, so anyone who was watching could also ask the engineers questions at the same time. It was totally a little experiment, except then about a couple weeks later, Katy Perry's manager called asking if Katy Perry could come on Facebook Live to announce her world tour. Then I had to pretend it was an actual show and not just a broom closet. Katy Perry came on, we had a slew of celebrities who followed after that, and then in a real highlight moment of my career, the White House called asking if President Obama could come on Facebook Live and do a town hall to all of America. And it was in that moment that I decided this was what I was passionate about, this was my time, and it was time to partner up with Bradley, who I had worked on with many media projects while he was at ABC News, and start our own media company. So here I am, really excited to share with you, but actually I had 2 startups because 3 days after that Obama town hall, I gave birth to my son Asher, who you see on the slides here, who is such a love of my life. As I've talked to other parents and watched Asher growing up, I have realized what a complicated world Asher is growing up in. For example, I thank my lucky stars every day that I met my husband before the age of like Facebook dating and are we Facebook official and what's going on and like Twitter official. I also think about how we break news these days. When I was announcing that I was pregnant with Asher, I literally had to sit down with my husband and make a McKinsey-style Excel spreadsheet on who would be pissed off if they found out through social media rather than through us directly. And the other day, one of Asher's little friends came over to our house, saw my computer, and went, "Grandpa!" Because he's so used to Skype, he thinks his grandpa lives inside the computer. So very interesting, complicated world that we're raising our children in, and we're really the first generation of parents who are going to be raising these incredibly digitally savvy kids, even though we didn't necessarily grow up with these tools ourselves. So before I go into what we do want to do with social media, I thought, please humor my poor attempt at stand-up comedy with who you don't want to be on social media. People always ask me about my pet peeves, so here you go. First, the crazy cat lady. We all know these. The person who's like has a million hashtags of their animals. Or how about the obsessive food blogger? The person who thinks they're like secretly a New York Times food critic, even though it's a tuna fish sandwich. Or the person who's late to the party. Like, I actually saw someone in my newsfeed a few weeks ago be like, I just discovered a new show, 24. Isn't it amazing? I was like, I'm pretty sure 24 came out like 24 years ago. Or the couple who you're like just text each other already. They're going back like, schmoopy poo, I love you so much. And you're just like, please take this off of public. The promotional broadcaster, that person who uses their personal Facebook page on behalf of a business or a contest or something that they're working for. The vague booker, the person who says things just to get you to call them on the phone. And like, you can't help it. They're like, was wondering, is it all worth it? And my favorite, the old person who just doesn't get it. Here is a father who confused Google and Facebook. This is an actual exchange that happened. So without further ado, I want to run you through 10 trends that I'm hearing a lot about in Silicon Valley in the tech world about content, media, and some of the really exciting things, how we can all use them for our blogs and the content we're all creating. The first is through social media, I've really started to see that people, obviously they care about the content you're writing, but they really want to know who's behind the content that you're writing. For example, they want to know the causes that you're passionate about. They want to know who you are as a person. Here's a really great campaign on the screen where a lot of food bloggers actually came together to talk about causes they were passionate about in the food and hunger space. I love blogs where people aren't afraid to show the messy or chaotic sides of their lives. We all know not everyone can have it all. Not everyone, not every moment of life is perfect. And so not being afraid to show that really human side of who you are is something that's really going to resonate with your fans also. When you think about your bio and describing yourself to people online, it's also, I think, really important to be human, to be relatable. I really love how Ariana Huffington has in her Twitter profile that she's into flat shoes. And just like very relatable things that connect you and show you who she is as a person. And Deepak Chopra does a really great job of getting on Google Hangouts and video and actually just having like great one-on-one conversations with fans, just talking about who he is, what's going on in his life and showing behind the scenes. So as you guys are thinking about your blogs, think about, what can you do to really introduce people to who you are, what you're passionate about, and give them a little peek behind the curtain into what's going on. Second, we are now all media companies. I remember when I wrote for my high school newspaper, we had a giant staff of people, and I think our total circ that we reached was a few hundred readers. Now, probably most people in this room reach a few hundred people with anything that you tweet or update on Facebook or blog. So it's a very interesting time that we live in. When you think about a company like Red Bull, who has over 30 million fans on their Facebook page, Red Bull now can function almost like an NBC or a television network in what they put out. And any of us who tuned into the Space Jumper earlier this year knows now brands are creating these media moments that are almost as influential as the biggest television moments. Pinterest is a really great way that a lot of brands are acting as curators for the Whole Foods has some great boards in which they're actually serving as a media company. They've realized the importance of putting out fresh content every single day in a way that the audience gets used to. And you're starting to see more and more brands that are really viewing their channels as almost like magazines or properties like that. There's a really cool site called ModCloth that I like to look at a lot of the time. They have vintage clothing. They've actually said that almost 50% of their user base comes back every single day to the site just to view new items. Because they saw people doing that, they actually have staggered their release. So instead of just showing, here's our entire spring line, they now roll out 2 or 3 new items every single day because they understand that instead of just being a retail company, they're also a media company, and they want to give people a reason to come back to the site every day. Third, we're seeing huge developments around enhanced media and the fact that anyone can now speak directly to customers in a premium way. With the rise of things like House of Cards, with paid channels on YouTube, we're starting to see for the first time that people will really pay for premium content online. This is not something that I would have gotten up and said a few years ago, but more and more there's a willingness for people to pay for what they love. Now, I heard a really heartwarming story just a few weeks ago. Someone said that his 9-year-old daughter was able to self-publish one of her books from school on Amazon. Again, not something that we even would have thought was a possibility a decade ago, but all of a sudden, really anyone can take their dream, bring it to life, and sell it. I think EdTech is one of the most interesting spaces where this is happening. There's a lot of sites out there like Udemy and different course sites that actually can allow any of you to create a course on your area of expertise and sell it directly to your fan base. So if you're writing about books or travel or parenting or anything, there's an audience out there that if you're diving deeper into content will be willing to pay a small amount of money in order to get that content delivered directly to them. The fourth trend, I hear a lot of people coming to me saying, new media, social media, it's like killing the old media business, which first of all, I hate the term old media. But I think more than ever, what we're all doing is more and more important. We live in a world where there is so much noise out there now. 100 hours of video are uploaded to YouTube every single minute. And so what you guys are doing, curating the best of content for your readers, is so important and so necessary. There's more of a place for experts now than ever before with all the noise. This is one of my actual most favorite blogs. It's called Red Tricycle, and every single Thursday or Friday, they just deliver a list of fun things to do with your child in your city. It's, it's really useful to me because I could go on a million different event sites, but they're curating for me exactly things that are interesting to me and where I am in my life. For example, actually, I don't even know what this slide is. Daily Candy is a great one. They have a summer reading list, and Mashable does a great roundup every single week of kind of 60 or 70 things you might have missed in tech and social media. So anything that you guys can do as you're thinking about your content to create kind of lists, roundups, curation for your audience is incredibly successful and gets a lot of clicks and engagement. This is the biggest thing when I was working at Facebook. Everyone would always ask me, how do I get more likes? How do I get more fans? And the number one thing I would tell people is pictures. Pictures need no translation. And because social media is so global in nature, you want to speak to people in a language that universally everyone can understand. In fact, Facebook photos actually get a significantly higher engagement. So you'll see brands like Starbucks that actually will post only photos, and a lot of brands are starting to focus more on platforms like Instagram and Pinterest because they're actually seeing the value of these image-based platforms. And there's some really great campaigns. If you're ever running a contest, there's a company called Citrus Lane. They do a monthly subscription box for parents and families. And they always encourage people to upload photographs receiving their box in the mail and then feature them on their Facebook page so that people feel like a little bit of a celebrity or a star. And it's a great way to really engage your fans. A few of the most interesting things I've seen over the years, I saw a marathon where they actually hired a photographer at the finish line to take a photo of every single runner that crossed the finish line and then gave them a card that said, find the photo on Facebook and tag yourself in it. It's really brilliant because anytime someone tags themselves, it goes out to all of their fans too. So if you guys are at events or hosting events, consider bringing along a friend or a photographer and then just having everyone go to your blog or your page in order to tag themselves. Sixth trend that I've seen is really everyone's kind of getting the entrepreneurial bug right now. In fact, there's a rise of what we're calling the entreployee within organizations. It's easier than ever to join incubators, to get startup funding, to just turn an idea into a vision. And because of that, companies are working harder and harder to keep their good employees rather than have employees go off and have their own startup. So a few things you're seeing a range of everything from Google giving their employees 20% time to work on anything they want. You're seeing things like the hackathons we did at Facebook, but you're also seeing big companies are actually creating their own incubators for their own employees and saying, spend a year working on your startup, we'll fund it inside our company and just take a small piece of it. On LinkedIn, if you look at the trends of the biggest rising professions on LinkedIn, it's things like community manager, evangelist. It's these kind of entrepreneurial career tracks inside of big companies where they identify people who are really excellent at writing or using social media or engaging a community and sending them out to really evangelize the brand. The @reply is the new autograph, especially with authors who do this well. It's such a fantastic way to engage your fans. Paulo Coelho, one of my most favorite authors of all time, I think is one of the best at doing this. He goes on Twitter and will make sure that he @replies all of his hardcore fans. It makes them feel really special to get that from him. And a lot of business writers are doing the same thing. Now, also, Facebook chats, a lot of authors are having Facebook chats, Google Hangouts, where they're having the opportunity to speak one-on-one with small groups of their most loyal fans or followers. I remember being young and going to Broadway shows in New York City and literally waiting out in the freezing cold outside the stage door to get an autograph on my playbill. Well, now imagine those same actors can now virtually autograph hundreds or thousands of people's playbills simply through the social media tips at our resource. The gamification of everything. This is one of my favorite trends that's going on in Silicon Valley right now because you can literally take every mundane aspect of your life and apply game mechanics to it. Shopping, you can now get rewards to get free cappuccinos or free groceries from your local grocery store. Or for those of us who need, can you go to the next slide? For those of us who need a little more humiliation in our lives, sorry, go back one. There is one, this is called Gym Shamer, for those of us who are motivated by humiliation. You put your Facebook and Twitter account in, and if you don't go to the gym, it blasts out how lazy you were to all your friends. Now, for those of us who would rather have positive reinforcement, there are wonderful apps like Nike Plus. I don't know how many of you have used this one, but when you're about to go for a run, you can post from the Nike Plus app directly to Facebook, and anyone who likes your status, it cheers for you in your ear while you're running. So you can be on like mile 2, getting tired, and all of a sudden it's like, yeah! And you have like your Rocky moment while you're running. Keep going. I don't know why anyone would use this product, but this is a scale that tweets your weight. Yeah, so talk about if you want to use social media for accountability to your friends. That's the one for you. And somewhere, we missed the screenshot somewhere in there, but there was this is an alarm clock where you actually put your credit card in, and if you hit snooze, you donate $1 to charity. So all kinds of really interesting things going on there. I've seen game mechanics applied to blogs and content sites too in really interesting ways. I've started to see on a lot of blogs where someone puts out a blog post or an interesting piece of content, and they actually give their readers and subscribers a game. So it's like, if you tweet this out, you get 3 points. If you reshare it, you get 2 points. If you blog it, you get this. And then whoever gets the most points at the end gets a prize of some sort. So I've started to see a lot of game mechanics even applied to blogging and to readers. Sorry, Brad, I'm throwing you for a loop here. Obviously, video is something I'm incredibly passionate about, and started really seeing video as a very powerful means for storytelling online through social media. Vine is the latest, hottest thing in video, where you can actually upload a video, but it has to be 6 seconds or less, and send it out via Twitter. So you have newsrooms who are giving kind of behind-the-scenes glimpses. I even saw a Vine resume, someone who kind of caught the attention of everyone. Vine proposals, you name it. It's a great way to kind of pique someone's interest in your content in 6 seconds and then drive them to something that's longer form. You also have Google Glass, which is very interesting, but also a little controversial. Google Glass, the glasses that enable you to record video, take photos, look at porn, whatever you want to do, while you're also talking to other people. And DVF used Google Glass in a really interesting way. Walking the runway at Fashion Week, they were able to live stream directly from the fashion models out to everyone, so you could get that really firsthand perspective of what it's like to walk a runway at Fashion Week. Recently, Bradley and I had the opportunity to work on a really exciting shoot. It was an entire crowdsourced live wedding. We worked with Brides Magazine at Condé Nast, and literally every aspect of the wedding, from the couples who sent in videos of why they should be chosen, to the dresses, the hair, the theme, the color, every single thing was voted on by hundreds of thousands of people through social media. And then the wedding with the final choices was live streamed online. So through that, you start to really be able to bring a big audience into intimate experiences and have them feel like they're there. So again, anything that you can do to live stream, to allow your fans to have a little bit of creative control alongside of you in the decision, will go a long way. And then finally, I obviously want to talk to you a little bit about my book and the impetus for my book. As I've traveled around a lot in the past few years, I've spoken to a lot of audiences about business, about tech, about social media. But one thing that always fascinated me was that after I was done giving my talk, people would always come up to me and ask me questions about tech and their own personal lives. Things about, why won't my kid friend me on Facebook? Or like, oh gosh, you know, my husband won't stop texting during dinner and he's setting a bad example for our family. What do I do? And I started to realize that digital etiquette and finding the balance between tech and life is becoming a bigger and bigger issue and a hotter topic in our lives. So again, I guess things like, how do I manage my professional reputation? How do I tactfully remove myself from an email with 55 people CC'd on it? Or how much is too much screen time for my toddler? These are all things that we're grappling about. It's not tech content, it's really modern living. So that's why earlier this year, I embarked on a journey to write my first book, Complicated. It also has a companion website and newsletter where every single week we talk about issues of modern living. We talk about apps, we talk about the latest technologies, we go through things like how to stand out from the crowd applying for a job, or how to talk to your kids about Snapchat. And the book that I'm really excited about, that's coming out November 5th, is really kind of a guide into modern life and how technology has really changed all the ways we communicate with the people we love around us. I know, for example, something that I'm really guilty of is I always tell my husband, hey, I'm coming home early from work. You know, we're gonna have a great night at home. And then we sit on the sofa, both of us on our laptops. Literally might as well be on two different planets from one another. And I've started to hear a lot of people talk about digital detox, what that means in their families, in their homes. And actually, the pendulum is shifting away from wanting to always be connected to wanting to find some time in our lives when we can disconnect. In fact, on a kind of silly note, there are actual digital detox vacations that you can go on where they will take your phone, collect all your devices. And there's actually a hotel in DC that collects your phone and locks it away in a safe for you when you check in. So for those of us who are truly tech addicts, you can actually have someone force you to do it. There is a company called Full Contact in Denver that will actually pay their employees a bonus if they completely disconnect on vacation, because so many studies have shown that people come back much more relaxed and productive if they're able to completely disconnect. On the more serious side, you have a lot of issues right now around texting and driving. And one of the biggest areas of innovation I've seen is technology that kind of saves us in spite of ourselves. So technology that detects when your phone is going faster than 25 miles an hour and automatically shuts it down, or automatically sends people an auto response message like, sorry, can't respond right now, I'm driving. So a lot of this also led me to write a second book at the same time, because I noticed that a lot of people were asking me about my son, about my rules for my son, about how much screen time I allow him. Does he have his own iPad? What are my rules? But no one was asking me what my rules for myself were. No one was asking me if I set a good example for my son or a good example for my family. And that's when I realized that I also really desperately wanted to write a children's picture book that dealt with this topic of tech life balance for kids and around parents setting a good example for their children. So you can meet Dot here. Dot is a tech-obsessed little girl who loves her iPad and her iPhone and Skyping and chatting with her friends, and over the course of the book learns to also go play outside like a normal little girl, and then realizes that you can have it all. You can have a wonderful balance between tech and life. So just to recap all the trends, Bradley will call the trends up on the screen. While he's doing that, I just wanted to tell you, I'm very excited that I think literally 30 seconds ago, both the books went up on Amazon, which is really huge. That means it's like really official author. And I'm just really very excited to be here. You guys are the very first audience that I'm talking about my books. So thank you for being so wonderful and so enthusiastic, and I'm really appreciative. Have a great day.